Are you having trouble getting your child to eat? Are you facing a child at the dinner table who just won't eat the meal that you have made? Are you worried, concerned that your child's not growing properly, or worse, just not getting that nutritious diet you know he needs? Hey everyone, my name's Jill Castle. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm a pediatric dietitian and host of this show where I produce videos every week, so make sure you subscribe, hit the button, and ding the bell so you know exactly when my next video comes live. Today we are talking about the child who won't eat, and I'm really here to reassure you and to help you sort of mentally check off some of the things that can alert you to a problem versus just kind of typical childhood behavior, especially during the toddler years. Before we get started though, if you're having trouble feeding your toddler or your child, you're having trouble with getting them to eat, make sure you check out my book, Try New Food, How to Help Picky Eaters Taste, Eat, and Like New Foods, or head over to my website, thenourished.child.com, where I have lots of articles, podcast episodes, books to help you, trainings, and programs to help you feed your children. So when your child is not eating, the first thing I want you to do is do a reality check. Is your child having several opportunities during the day to eat? Do you have those 3 meals and 2 or 3 snacks planned throughout your day every 2 to 3 hours? That routine, that predictable schedule is really helpful for children, not only because they set up a routine and a rhythm with eating, but also because it allows you to provide plenty of opportunities for your child to eat and meet his nutritional needs throughout the day. So the other reality check to this is check your child's weight. Look at your child. Is he gaining weight normally? Is he growing? Is he active? Is he healthy? Is he sleeping well? These are all indicators that your child's doing well nutritionally, meeting his energy needs and his nutritional needs from the outside. So one of the ways that you can sort of quell your concerns is to get your child weighed and measured at the pediatrician's office. Look at your child's growth chart. That growth chart will show you whether your child is gaining weight appropriately and tracking along his personal growth curve for both weight and height, and that measurement that we use that tells us whether weight is appropriate for height, called body mass index. If all 3 of those, weight, height, and body mass index, seem to be moving along like normal, then your concern about whether your child is eating or not can relax a little bit, because if children are growing well, they're obviously getting enough energy and most likely getting the nutrients that they need. Also, in the realm of a reality check, think about the fact that children need far less calories than adults do. So when we are using our own eating habits or the eating habits of our older children, for example, or comparing our little kids to big kids, that's not a fair comparison. Little children need fewer calories than big children, and big children need fewer calories oftentimes than adults unless they are a teenager. So keep the perspective of calories in and how much a child needs. Keep a reality check on that, because if you're assuming that your child needs to be eating as much as you do, then you're gonna feel like your child's not eating at all, because you're comparing a child to adult portions and adult calorie levels. Also remember, portion sizes for children are smaller in general than those for adults and grown teenagers. So also keep that in mind. What might look like a tiny little portion for somebody might be just the right amount for a child. And also, kids have tinier tummies than adults do, or bigger kids like teenagers. And so when we're talking about toddlers, preschoolers, young school-age children, their tummies are smaller. So it doesn't take a lot of food to fill up those tummies. So it might look like they're not eating, but they might have eaten enough to fill their smaller tummies. The second thing to think about when you feel like your child's not eating is to step back and look at yourself. Are you interfering with your child's eating? So we haven't talked a lot about feeding interactions and feeding styles and feeding practices on this channel yet, but I will be getting into that more deeply in the future. But one of the things we know about parenting around food is that parents can interfere with their children's eating. And when they do that, it can decrease their children's eating. It can also increase their children's eating unintentionally as well. I'll give you a good example. Pressure to eat. So pressure to eat is when parents remind their children to take another bite or nag their children to try something new. You've heard it. Come on, Sally, just take a couple of bites. I know you'll like it. Or Jack, if you don't finish your plate, you're going to skip dessert and go to bed early. So that's interference with eating. So we all do it at one time or another. Some of us do it more than others, but I can tell you it does not help children eat better. It typically helps them either eat worse, become more picky, or it can even make them overeat. So make sure you're not interfering with your child's eating. Also, are you making a big deal of your child not eating? Are you putting a lot of emphasis on that, drawing a lot of attention to that? Kids are sensitive to that sort of stuff, and oftentimes they can live up to the labels that you put on them. For example, if you say, oh, Jack's a picky eater and Sally's fussy with food, and you say that over and over again in the presence of your child can take on that persona, can live up to that label. So make sure you're not doing that if you have a child who you feel like isn't eating enough. I actually did a video on this called P.R.A.I.S.E, P.R.A.I.S.E, for toddler picky eaters, and it's something that you can watch, and I go through that acronym P.R.A.I.S.E and talk about sort of the mental mind shift that parents need to do when they have a child who's a picky eater, or who have a child who is not eating well. Another thing is to double check and make sure you have structure set up with feeding. I hinted to this earlier, but children thrive on structure with meals and snacks. So that means, having a plan for breakfast at a particular time in a particular location, and that similar plan for lunch and for dinner, and a plan for snacks. That means if you looked at your whole day, you'd know the timing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and your snack times. You know exactly where those events or those meals and snacks are taking place. And ideally, you would have a menu planned for each of those. Some of us don't plan menus, and that's fine, but at least in your head, you have an idea of what's happening at breakfast, lunch, and dinner in terms of the food elements that will be included in that meal. What else goes along with that structure? Making sure that those meals and snacks are spaced out about 2 to 3 hours for toddlers and preschoolers, and 3 to 4 hours for older children. Teenagers could possibly even stretch to 5 hours like we adults can. And then the other component is, are you closing down the kitchen in between those meals and snacks? Now, closing down the kitchen is theoretical. It is not something that you are going to, close literally doors and put locks and keys on them. That's not what I'm talking about. It's really the kitchen is open for meals, and now the meal is over, so the kitchen is closed. And the message is to children that we don't eat food in between meals and snacks. When we eat is determined by mom and dad, and these are the timings, and this is what we're eating. So closing that kitchen in between really keeps that structure intact, and it can help children build their appetite. When children are allowed to graze all day long, to go into the pantry and out of the pantry and snack whenever they want to, they really don't build an appetite for mealtime, and it can appear like they're not eating well. When in fact, they've probably grazed their way through the day, met their caloric and nutritional needs, and just aren't hungry by the time the end of the day comes around. And that ties into this idea of, are there too many snacks and drinks during the day for your child? So if you look at the research studies, it pretty much indicates that kids are eating about 25% of their calories from snacks. So that's really like a fourth meal. And that's probably too much. So when you think about snacks, you want them to be small, nutritious mini meals. And really, as I emphasized before, the younger the child, the more snacks. I would not advise a child having more than 3 snacks a day. And that would be for a very young child, like a toddler and a preschooler. Once children move into the school age years, they move down in their number of snacks. They go to about 2 snacks a day, a mid-morning snack and a mid-afternoon snack. And teenagers and adults, well, I do think that they need 1 snack a day, but do they need 3 or 4 snacks a day? No, that's probably not healthy overall, nutritiously for them. And it really, again, when you eat a lot of snacks during the day, you can mess up your appetite cycle, those signals that tell your body that it's time to eat because you're hungry, as well as those signals that tell your body it's time to stop eating because it's full and satisfied. And don't forget that calories come in the form of beverages too. And I think it's easy for us to forget that when your child is drinking 4 or 5 cups of milk a day, not only does that add calories and nutrition, that can fill a child up too and make his appetite for eating foods later in the day kind of not there. So remember that things like juice, milk, lemonade, other sugary sweetened beverages, they all have calories and can tell the body that it's full and not hungry. So take those drinks into account as well as you look at your child's overall intake during the day. Now remember, overall, whatever your child is eating throughout the day adds up in terms of nutrients and calories are energy, right? And protein and all those nutrients that are so important for children to grow and develop. So if you're feeling like your child is not eating, again, I want you to do these reality checks. Check your schedule. Look at your child's weight and growth pattern. Verify that he, in fact, is not eating enough to grow and develop. My sense for most kids is that they do eat enough to grow and develop. It just might not meet the expectations of the parent. And that's why I wanted to give you some of these tips for a reality check, just to calm your fears about your child not eating enough or not eating well enough or not growing. Remember, you provide and your child decides whether or not he's eating what you've provided. And making sure that meals and snacks are nutritious and delicious, predictable, positive, and pleasant will go a long way to helping your child eat the amount that's right for him so that he can grow and develop. I hope you found this video helpful. Remember to check out my other videos on the channel. I talk about nutrition for kids from birth all the way to teenagerhood. And I also talk about feeding kids. Again, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the show, hit the button below, and the bell will tell you when I release a new video, which I do every week on Tuesdays. So thanks again for joining me today, and I hope you found this video about what to do when your child's not eating helpful. Take care.